You are now tuned into the sounds of
Big Nate Sports Talk.
It's on all the time, anytime.
Tuned in to Big Nate Sports Talk, the show that is on all the time, anytime. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the next big thing, the latest up-and-coming sports journalist, your host, Nathan Snell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anthony Handy, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Nathan Snell of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. This is episode 19, season 16 of the podcast. And in this episode, it's part 4 of One Mind, One Goal. We are continuing our WNBA playoff coverage. But before we get to that, there's a few things I want to say up front. Brendan Potts could not join me on this episode due to an outside obligation. We hope to have him in part 5. We are going to the semifinals. We're going to round 2, and we'll be previewing the game 1 of these 4 teams that are now still standing. I will have the Maryland Terrapins 3-game non-conference recap. Washington Commanders and Ravens recaps the last 2 games and previews for this week, week 3. Of the NFL season. I'll have those up as soon as possible. Yes, that's really all that's going on right there at the moment. More than likely, season 16 will end when the WNBA Finals comes to an end. So let's start into our first segment before we get into the playoff preview. Exit stage right. Painfully, Brendan and I called it. The Atlanta Dream got swept by the Dallas Wings. It was very, very. The game was over. It was decided pretty much after the first half. I felt as though Atlanta had a chance to win it in game 1, but then blew that 20-point lead. And this after the second quarter, it was over. For Dallas, is their first playoff win since 2009 when they were the Detroit Shock. I mean, it just to see kind of where they've kind of been with the franchise in terms of, they were in Tulsa for a little bit and now in Dallas. It's good to see spirits high in basketball just for that franchise, and I'm happy for them. They get Las Vegas Sunday. I thought the key was Atlanta. They need some shooting. Ryan Howard, Alicia Gray showed up. I think a couple things next year. Atlanta's going to have to do. Dan Panover, who's the general manager for the Dream. He's got some work he needs to do. You're going to have to figure out some size. You need a center. As much as I think I'm a fan of Cheyenne Parker and Monique Billings, they're not centers. I was a little disappointed in Coach Wright didn't utilize Haley Jones. Shout out to Tyler DeLuca of the committee after game one. Why she wasn't getting minutes. I noticed when you put Haley Jones in the lineup for them, um, things kind of calmed down, in my opinion, and they got some roster construction definitely to work on because I'm a little confused on this makeup of this roster and how minutes were distributed in roles. I don't think roles were really clear in this offense. So they have, I believe, it will be the 7th overall pick. So yes, so we'll see what it will look like. But when we get down that road, then there'll be a 1.0 mock draft coming out soon. So we tune in for that. So I think that's what Lane needs to work on now going into the off season. You got a good core, strong core with Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray. I still think Cheyenne Parker, Monique Billis should be a part of that. Just got to figure out the rest of the roster. And also, too, not having Nia Coffey, I thought that also kind of made a difference. She's out because of a hand injury. So that little bit made a bit of a difference. But, yeah, we'll see what happens with Atlanta. Minnesota forced a game 3. It was a tough loss, but it was a good season. This team started off 0-6, and they could have closed the door. They could have thrown the towel after the 6th loss, but give Nafisa Collier credit for making, I just think, putting the team on her back. It just, for me, when I watch the game was really over after the first quarter. Minnesota could never really get in a rhythm. I mean, Connecticut was up as much by 19. There's just no answers. I mean, Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner combined for 53 points and 16 rebounds and also had 18 assists. Ty Harris, who I think should be in the starting lineup against New York when we preview the series, had 18 points off the bench. Nafisa Collier had 31 points, 5 rebounds. Outside of that, the rest of her team, there just really weren't no help. I mean, they had all combined 44 points. That was 15 of 41 from the field, and that's a team that I think is still in a bit of a transition period. I think now Cheryl Reeves now knows what has to be done as a GM. But even though I believe that a head coach and a GM position should be separate. That's just my opinion. As I talk about the Minnesota Lynx, a friend of mine, and we're going to say their name is Stephanie. Stephanie and I had this conversation in the aftermath of the Lynx losing. And they said getting a point guard should be the number one priority. And then I asked about, they had signed Tiffany Mitchell in the offseason. And their response was to learn how to play point guard, and that experiment failed miserably. Then I said, what were your thoughts on Aero Powers? As somebody who's watched her consistently, she's not a good decision maker. Is a ball hog. I've heard from beat writers that write for the Lynx that she does the same thing in practice and has players frustrated. I feel like the only reason she started last year was because Fee was out 90% of the games. She's been a bench player until then. And that's fair. They have some decisions to make with their roster. When you look at the Minnesota Lynx, I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me is who stays. Aerial Powers, I know, won't re-sign with them. Kaylin McBride just recently signed a 2-year extension. Nafisa Collier is signed through the 2025 season. So Diamond Miller, Dorka, who I think should be on an all-rookie team, had good rookie years. Tiffany Mitchell's up till next year. And also didn't have Lindsay Allen, but Lindsay Allen's more of a backup guard. You have Jessica Shepard. Nadia Achanwa, she's an unrestricted free agent. Lindsay Allen's unrestricted. I just actually thought about that. Rachel Banham, unrestricted. They've got some. Cheryl Reeves has some things to make. I think she's got a good core, in my opinion. It's all around Nafisa Collier. I still believe they need to look for a center. I think naturally Nafisa is a power forward, not a center. That's just my opinion. I think Kayla McBride has shown that she can be the number 2 option in that offense, in my opinion. I just think, again, same thing with Minnesota. Roles weren't defined, especially not having Nafisa there last year. But give them credit. I asked Cheryl Reeves in the post presser, the adversity that they faced, because they could have quit after going 0-6 and they didn't. So they got some work to do, and I believe they'll probably have the 8th. I know Washington has the 6th. Atlanta or Minnesota have the 7th or 8th pick. So that's how it works. And I think whoever gets eliminated next will have the 9th and 10th, and then the last will have the 11th and 12th pick. So, and then painfully, the Washington Mystics. For a second year in a row, the Washington Mystics got swept.
I mean, damn! Damn!
I mean, this is some bad stuff. I don't.
We lost in overtime. I felt as though we had it. It was in our pocket, and just didn't have the answers. Final score was 90-85. Everything was clicking until that fourth quarter. I thought down the stretch, I thought we were a little undisciplined with the ball. There were certain things we didn't do on the defensive side, particularly when Sabrina and Nesky missed those 2 free throws, boxing out. Though really, other than Natasha Cloud, who I think was who put the team on her back, she came in there and said what she was going to do. And there really was nobody else. Brittany Sykes, but other than that, I couldn't really find anybody else. And then the only person really until the fourth, really, Benijah Lane was the only one that really showed up. Jonquel Jones and Brianna Stewart, they did their part to kind of put the dagger in the heart. But I think for Washington, especially, this has been my second year really truly covering the team. This was my first year as a beat writer. This is a bit of a weird season. This was a weird season because of all the injuries. Now that's not an excuse, but that's a reality. There was really a 2-week period where you really saw what this team could be. And we were 8-4 at that time. Then Shakira got hurt. Then Elena. Then Ariel. And Chrissy Tolliver. When you lose particularly 3 starters, that's hard to replace it. That's hard. And not saying that though Maisha Hines-Allen or Tiana Hawkins or Shatori Walker, Kimbrell, or Lee Mung didn't step up. They all stepped up. But if, for example, look at Connecticut, right? Most people would have thought, well, Brianna Jones turned her Achilles. Okay, well, what does their season look like? And they kept going. If you look at a team like them, if they lost Brianna, Alyssa, and Dawana, that's hard to replace 3 scorers. Same thing with Las Vegas. Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Asia Wilson gets hurt. That makes a difference. personally, and this is just my opinion, and I stand by this. I just feel as though when you're selected to an All-Star game, the week before you should not be playing. I thought that game before All-Star break, Elena Deladon should not have been playing, and stepped on somebody's foot and messed up her ankle. I wanted to bring up this stat, and this is important as I mention this to you. I want you to understand the amount of games missed due to injury. Chrissy Tolliver missed 25 games. Shakira Austin missed 18. Elena Deladon missed 17. Errol Atkins missed 11. Maisha Hines-Allen missed 3. And Natasha Cloud missed Maisha Hines-Allen missed 5, excuse me. Natasha Cloud missed 3. When you look at this roster, and in the X interview, general manager Mike Tebow, who I met at the game, our last home game, the Dream, nice guy. He said transitions are where you can use, but it's a gray area. I don't really know how to really take that, other than for me, this was the year. It was like championship or bust, because after this year, this other than Shakira, Queen, that Errol Atkins, who just signed the contract, Maisha Hines-Allen, Shatori Walker, Kimbrell, the Mystics, they've got some free agents. Elena Deladon, unrestricted. Natasha Cloud, unrestricted. Chrissy Tolliver, unrestricted. Lee Mung is a reserve, and Sean Hawkins is restricted. And I think also too, I think you're going to have to figure out this offense. To me, the priority is figuring out what is the identity going to look like going into 2024. Mike said we really won't know until January, February, and I agree with that. I think it's going to be up to the players and what they want to do. In my opinion, this core is older. This is not 2019, especially if you're trying to compete for a championship. I'm all about injecting youth into a starting lineup, but I have to be honest. Elena Deladon is now 34. She's played 51 games over the last 4 years. That's almost $1 million in salary. She coming into this season, she said she felt the most healthy she's ever felt, and then she got the perception about her back and other things. She literally stepped on somebody's foot and twisted and messed her ankle up, then her hip, and didn't look all that spectacular at all in this first round series. She was 9 of 28, and without even hitting a 3.
I can't defend that. What do you want me to say to that?
I'm just not comfortable in giving a player at that age, especially with the injuries and how many. I mean, when healthy, Elena Deladon is a top 5 player in this league, but Elena also too is going to say, I need to take a step back. I know I'm not, she's a star, but we can't pay her like a star. I think the first 6 weeks showed at her peak what she is in this league. She's a superstar, elite. Natasha Cloud, I think, who is the heart and soul of this franchise, as the emotional leader. Don't know what that's going to look like. Somebody's going to pay her. So I mean, I'm a little surprised that they got a contract extension with Errol Atkins. before Natasha Cloud and Elena Deladon. So which tells me they weren't happy with numbers, that the offers that they got, or they just want to see what their options are. But I really don't know what this Mystic teams will look like come the offseason. I don't. And I don't think it's fair to criticize to critique Eric Tebow. It's not. He didn't have a healthy roster. At times he was going in there with 7-8 players, and a couple of them were coming from on hardship contracts. And shout out to Lene Harper and Saisha Gore, and they're in the starting lineup. Like, come on, And then Mike talked about he had contacted a player. They agreed on a hardship. He didn't get the player's name. Okay. Saturday night, they agreed. Goes in the gym Sunday. He gets a phone call and he states that they tore their hamstring. And then also too, a lot of experienced players are already committed to overseas. So the list kind of now dwindles down to to just really bench role players, not players that impact the starting lineup, not that they give your starting lineup a spark. So I just feel like I don't think it's fair to really critique Eric. I think he deserves some. I think he deserves a lot of grace, because especially he did do a good job, especially to keep a team around 500 despite the injuries. And I watched Mike go through the same thing in 2021 with the injuries, Elena, Alicia Clark. And that's another thing too. A lot of people, and I understand it, and I understand, but we're really going to have to dissolve this argument. The Mystics passing up on Ryan Howard. For some context, the Washington Mystics had the number 1 overall pick. They traded that pick to Atlanta for the 3rd overall pick and an extra pick in that draft, who they used to draft Chrislyn Williams out of UConn. Shakira Austin, to me, was the right pick for the Washington Mystics. And when you look, and the numbers tell it, especially this season, defensive-wise, when she's not on the floor, they almost allow over 100 points compared to when she's on the floor, less than 90 points. But then also, too, you have to understand, Alicia Clark, when she signed with the Mystics, before she even touched the court here overseas, suffered what most would consider a career-ending foot injury. And then last year, you could tell wasn't really 100%. And then the signing of Elizabeth Williams, that sort of kind of didn't pan out. So I think this year, Washington has a 6th overall pick. They're going to have to figure out some things. Now, for me, I just think that when you look at this team, he's got a good core to work with. He's got Brittany Sykes, Shakira Austin, Maisha Hines-Allen, Ariel Atkins, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough. On paper, and then we'll see what Mike does with free agency in the draft. So it's going to be interesting to see what is going to be blending with this core. They have 3 first-round picks, 1 this year and then 2 next year. Now, that 1 this year in 2025 is coming from Atlanta, thanks to when they traded Stephanie Soros to Dallas. And they also had got it when they had traded for Alicia Gray to Atlanta. So I'm really thinking Mike is going to have some work to do in this off season, but I think this is definitely. I don't want to say this is the end, but this is most definitely a transition. Um, this hurts a little bit because this core has been together practically since 2017 for the most part, and I think to see just what they went through this year in terms of the injuries, um, and when your two post players are injured and your interior defense is falling apart. You went 3-8 without without three of your starters, um, and then you're I feel like the centerpiece of all this just wasn't her. And then Shakira Austin re-aggravated her hip not once, injured hip not once but twice. So this was definitely a what if season for the Washington Mystics. I know if I'm going on a rant because I just feel bad, and just when they did the exit interviews yesterday, you could just see this, like, I wouldn't call it sense of relief, but it's disappointment because you don't know what this team's going to look like next year. So that ends my spiel of the Mystics. But going into this offseason, they do have the 6th overall pick. We did give up our 2nd round pick in a trade for Amanda Zawi B, but we got one from Dallas. And we have a 3rd round pick. So those 3 first round picks are going to be key to the Mystics' success long term. But then also, too, if we're being honest, I'm holding off on that. But that's pretty much all for the Washington Mystics. Let's get into the games. New York Liberty versus the Connecticut Sun. I think this definitely has the makings of being a great series. I feel as though, for me, when you look at these 4 teams, particularly these 2, New York had the season series. They swept them 4-0. This is their first semifinals appearance. They've gotten to this point, the New York Liberty, but I think when you look at what Jonathan Cobb's done with this roster, it's been pretty well. I mean, game 1, Sabrina Ionescu went off on us with 27 points. Brandon Stewart had 27. Benijah Laney, Kayla Thornton, all of them, they have been a little bit quiet, but they know their roles. I feel like, also I think the key in this for New York is Courtney Vandersloot, because I think she is a weapon that needs to be valued. When you look at a Connecticut, you still have the core that's been here before. You still have Alyssa Thomas, DeWanna Bonner, Natisha Heidemann, Dejanay Carrington, Tiffany Hayes, Rebecca Allen, and, Ty Harris. They're newcomers, but Tiffany Hayes has playoff experience. Rebecca Allen has been in this situation before. I just feel like Connecticut's on a mission to get back there. I feel like this series, to me, I feel like Connecticut's motivated. I'm curious to know what this series look like, because particularly I think my X factor is who wins the inside, the interior battle. I think they're going to really feel the loss of Brianna Jones. I mean, when the Liberty get going, they get going because of Jonquel Jones, who played a big role in then beating us. And she let the world know why she was a former MVP, especially where she had a double-double in game 1 and a double-double in game 2. Bring hand on those stats. And look at Connecticut. Even without Brianna Jones, they were still a strong defensive team. They played practically very undersized, but I think you're going to have to figure out how you defensively match up with New York. I think you got to make some things uncomfortable for them. The key for me in this series, honestly, it's going to come down to the interior defense. Um, I think New York has to come out and set the tone. I'm personally, I look at it like this. When you look at New York, they individually can have bad games. Like Brianna Stewart could have a bad night. Jonquel Jones can have one. Serena Ionescu. When you look at Connecticut, they damn near have to play perfect. In my personal opinion, I think the key, we say it's going to always Alyssa Thomas, but I'm going to look at the others. I think the others are key in this. In this series. Um, I think for me, Alyssa's play against New York, and I think Connecticut, you'll see a different offense to me, especially game one. It's going to be interesting to see what game one's going to be. So to me, it's going to set the tone. But when you look at, for example, Alyssa Thomas's numbers, she averages about 11 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. I think almost turned the ball over at least about 3 times. They shot under 33%. Again, that's a team that went 0-4. She is the engine. Like when she doesn't play well, they don't play well. So it's going to be interesting to see, for me, how do you open up the lane for her, but how can we utilize the shooters around her? Because you've got arguably 2 best interior defenders in the game in Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones. But Alyssa is mostly is in the paint most of the time. I mean, the attempts she took this year, 513, only 67 of those shots were outside the paint. So her game is practically bully ball. Whether she waits to find an open teammate when the defense collapses, or she scores herself. So I think it's going to be interesting how, especially when you've got Jonquel Jones or Brianna Stewart either guarding the weak side or hounding, it's going to be interesting because it's definitely going to be key to watch the others. She's got to get the offense Alyssa has to figure out how to get those 2 situations, get them early foul trouble. I think that's key. But how do we make them we have to beat them on the outside, shooting the ball. I think that's the key. DeWanna Bonner, Rebecca Allen, Ty Harris, Tiffany Hayes. They're the keys. DeWanna Bonner, I know is going to go out there and play, but the others are the key. I think also too, it's going to be interesting to see offensively what New York does with Jonquel Jones. There were times, especially watching when they played the Mystics, where there's about 10 minutes where Jonquel doesn't touch the ball. And some of that was predicated on we didn't really have a true defender on her. But I'm curious to really see how defensively they're going to match up against her, because they're probably it's the same thing. They don't have anyone, I think, that can physically guard her. Maybe DeWanna. Betty Hattar is not. No, is no. Maybe Olivia Nelson, maybe. But I really be watching that matchup for sure. I think that's definitely key. And I think it's going to come down to just shooting threes in this series. Same thing with Washington. This year, New York was the best 3-point shooting team. I think we look at Connecticut; they're a little bit more selective, and they take good shots. They did finish 9th in attempts, but they were 4th in percentage. Ty Harris led the league this year in 3-point percentage. So shout out to Ty Harris. And if you look, roles reversed because New York, they have not been a great 3-point shooting team. They're making under 30%. I think it was like 28% of their threes compared to Connecticut, where it's almost about 46%. And they've actually not been afraid to shoot the ball. But then again, look who they played, Minnesota. So I'm curious to see what that will look like. I think the key is Alyssa Thomas and the battle and battling Brianna Stewart and John Cole Jones in the paint and and outside shooting. And I think you're going to create turnovers early. I think that's going to be the key. Game 1 will set the tone for this series. I just don't like this matchup, especially for Alyssa. And then not having Brianna, I always keep saying Brianna, not having Brianna Jones there makes a difference. I have trust issues with New York. It should not have taken them overtime to beat Washington, even though Washington blew the game. There were 6 times where Washington should have shut the door. They didn't. I'm going to surprise some. I'm going to say Connecticut will win this series in 5.
Guaranteed.
I think Connecticut is motivated. They've got a little bit more rest. I think they're prepared. I think they know the task at hand. Sure, I mean, as I just stated about the matchups, but I think everything is clicking in the right direction for Connecticut. With New York, defensively, they're great. Offensively, they can be a bit up and down. You don't know what New York team you're going to get at times. And I just don't trust that. That's just me. Let's get into this next series. The Las Vegas Aces versus the Dallas Wings. This should actually be a very, very good series to watch. For me, I still think Las Vegas will get to the finals, and I'm confident with that. I mean, Chicago was really just a test. But really wasn't much sitting in the way with Chicago. When you look at Dallas, this is a little bit more of a challenge. I think Dallas is a sleeper to get to the finals. I think this should really be interesting. For me, I think there, to me, are going to be my keys for this series. Threes are definitely going to be essential in this game because both teams can shoot the daylight out the ball from 3. Dallas is a slightly bit better of a team from shooting from 3 compared to Las Vegas, where it's 37%, just about 33%. I think for me, the Aces do have more shooters that can space the floor. You have Alicia Clark, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, Asia Wilson. That makes a difference. And when you look at the 4, Alicia Clark, who's 6th Woman of the Year, who stepped up in Candace Parker's place, played a tremendous. It has been a big piece for them, and she's part of her, Chelsea, Jackie, and Kelsey. They all finished in the top 20 in terms of 3-point shooting. When you look at Dallas, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they slow the guards down for Las Vegas. How you slow down Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, and Jackie Young, who I think are all capable of giving you 20 plus a night. defensively, I'm going to be seeing how Enrique and Crystal Dangerfield work on the defensive side of the ball because they're not true defenders. They're more scorers. And when you look at them, the numbers speak for themselves when Vegas has played Dallas. And they almost average about 60 points on 15 assists, is shooting over 50% from the field and almost 49% from three. And one of those 3 wins of the season series, Kelsey Plum did not play. So I would expect Coach Trammell, to give Odyssey Sims more of a role because she is a better defender than Enrique and Crystal Dangerfield. And then when you look at their backcourt, they just don't have, for me, they don't have anybody else that can slow them down. I think that that is a true weakness, in my opinion. I would expect Dallas to go zone. In my opinion, I noticed they did that. I saw after the second matchup, so I would expect to see that in the finals. But when you go zone, things change. So this is a Dallas team that's very undersized at the guard position. So I'm definitely curious to see that. But I think the key, you can't outscore Vegas. That's another key. You can't just beat them at their own game. I mean, when they score 80 or more points, they're 33-1. When they don't, they're 1-5. You have to figure out how to slow their offense down, and I'm very curious to see how Dallas will do that. I think also too it's going to come down to defensive rebounding. I think rebounding on not just rebounding on both sides of the ball going to be key. Dallas had the 3rd best offensive rebounding rating, and I mean in terms of scoring wise. Let me say that. Let me back up. They were 3rd best offensive wise, even though they're not being a great 3-point shooting team. The key was offensive rebounds. When you've got a front court trio of Satu Sabli, Natasha Howard, Tara McCowan, and then let's not forget Kalani Brown and Awad Kyrie, that is a cheat code. They all finished in the top 10 of offensive rebounds. They grabbed, I want to say it was almost 37% of rebounds off their missed shots and turned them into almost 15-second point chance, almost like it was like 14.8, like I'll run up to 15 second chance points. Like, that is freaking amazing. I mean, if you watched the series against Atlanta, I mean, they had 34 second chance points. Atlanta had no answers for them boxing out, size, nothing. I think Dallas will have their hands full with that because Las Vegas finished in defensive rebounding, and other than Asia, they have guards that can rebound the ball as well. So it's going to be interesting to see them. If how they're going to win on the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball, that's going to be key. But I also too think it's going to come down to who can get the coaching. Who gets out coached. I think there's going to be some mistakes. I really, really think it's going to be interesting to see how Coach Trammell has the game plan set in stone. So I think there needs to be I just think that lineup needs to change. I think you should have Enrique, Odyssey Sims, Satu, Natasha Howard, and Tara McCowan, only because for defensive purposes. But when I look at Vegas, they're on a mission to get back to the finals, and I'm confident with that. I just think that they have the edge because just how offensively they are. I think Dallas will make them work for it, but when you look at them, can Veronica Burton, who is a defensive stopper, what's her minutes going to look like in this series? We expect Odyssey Sims, just maybe not only just on the defensive side, but can she the pay what can she do on the offensive side of the ball? I just think that Dallas to me is a team that really cannot be trusted. For me, they're just too inconsistent to me, and I just don't think and defensively they could get a little lackadaisical on defense. And for me, I think Dallas is going to steal one, but I'm going to say the Las Vegas Aces win in 4.
Guaranteed.
Dallas is going to come out, punch him in the mouth, and Las Vegas is going to respond. That's how I feel. I think Dallas will come out and set the tone. But for me, when I look at Las Vegas, they're ready for this. I'm curious to see how Dallas will look come Sunday. And that's the previews. So tune into these games, all 4 games. One is tomorrow. No, they start Sunday, excuse me. First game is the Liberty versus the Sun. That's 1 o'clock. And then the Wings and Aces is at 5 o'clock. So definitely tune into those games. Definitely be glued to the TV. Let's get into the sponsor of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast, and that is Zagnif Apparel. Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to dress like you're already famous? You can and you will with Zagnif Apparel.
The following is a presentation of Zagnif Productions, LLC. Introducing Zagnif Apparel. Our comfortable line of leisure wear and athletic wear will have you comfortable and stylish at any occasion. Whether you're at the gym, out shopping, or just relaxing at home. Whether you're an athlete or just want to lay around the house, we've got the perfect outfit for you. Stop by our website today and pick up your favorite pieces. Zagnif Apparel. Dress like you're already famous.
You can most certainly do that with a nice 15% off using my discount code BIGNATE for your final purchase of Zagnif Apparel. Zagnif Apparel, thank you for being a sponsor of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, before we finish off the episode, we have some awards to announce. Today, the all defensive teams and the defensive player of the year was announced. I was surprised this was 2 weeks earlier. Don't know what that was all about. I did not have a vote. I wish I did. We're going to start with the all defensive teams. Congratulations to the following for all defensive second team: Benija Lady, Ezzy Magbagor, Neko Gumake, Nafisa Collier, and Elizabeth Williams, as they made an all-second defensive team, and the all-first WNBA all-defensive team led by Asia Wilson, Alyssa Thomas, Brittany Sykes, Brianna Stewart, and Jordan Canada. The only issue I had with that was Natasha Cloud. Natasha Cloud should have made an all-defensive team. This year was a little different in terms of the voting. They went positionless. I am not a fan of that. I strongly advocate for all 13 because I know we're going to have the same thing when we do the all NBA, all WNBA, and all first and second team. Because for me, I feel like for that, it should be all first. It should be Asia, Alyssa. It should be Nafisa. Brianna Stewart, That's it. Right now, the fifth one, I have to think about the fifth one, but those are my four: Asia, Alyssa, Nafisa, and Brianna for all first team. But really quick, I know Eric, head coach for the Washington Mystics, Eric Tebow, spoke about this, but so usually don't speak on way on awards, but you know, he talked about removing positions for all defensive team is mostly to blame. Stats are how people largely vote in explanation of these awards. That means steals, blocks, and rebounds. Two of those three skewed towards bigs. That is a fact. I don't think we're going to see many guards on all defensive teams going forward unless they are tops in steals, like Brittany Sykes, who was on pace to have 100 steals, and Jordan Canada. And you can't say there are 10 guards defensively better than Tasha Cloud. That's a fact. I don't like that at all. We need to really reconsider that, going back to position. If not, we need to really consider an all third team. That's just me. But yes. And then a defensive player of the year. Congratulations for a second year in a row, Miss Asia Wilson. She received 32 of the 60 votes. Melissa Thomas came in second place with 24. And painfully, Brittany Sykes had 3 votes.
It's ridiculous. It's obvious what's being done out here. It's on a nightly basis. I hope the world can see now what's really going on out here, because it's getting ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. Yes, man. This is ridiculous, man. Ridiculous.
So, congratulations to Asia. I'm not mad at her for winning Defensive Player of the Year. I'm hoping that the voters got it right for MVP. I'm a little concerned. I'm nervous. I still think all three, Alyssa Thomas, Brianna Stewart, Asia Wilson, all have made strong arguments for MVP. I just like to know for the voters, what are you looking for in these categories? And then 6 women, and then most improved player. I forgot to put that. Satu Sabli won that by a landslide. And again, I like to know what the qualifications for that one is, because when you look at Satu, the biggest thing was just the injury. We all knew the type of score she was going to be coming out of Oregon. So her play never dipped. It just staying healthy was the bigger thing. So, but again, I need to know what the qualifications are when it comes to these votes. So, congratulations to the most improved player of the year, Satu. Congratulations to the defensive player of the year, Miss Asia Wilson, and congratulations to the other all defensive team. Now that's left is all WNBA teams MVP, and yes, and that should be interesting. Let's get into the final message of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast.
Thoughts are running through my mind. Someone took some time to find a minute or two to organize.
I misspoke. This is a renewed name segment, One Final Thought. And my one final thought is I would like to take this opportunity to send my well-extended gratitude to the Washington Mystics for giving me the opportunity to cover this team this season. As of yesterday, my coverage for this team came to an end. I would just like to give them my warmest gratitude for allowing me to go cover some games in person. I can't wait to run it back next year. This was fun. I see the potential of where this can be. I know that there's some things I have to work on, and every day is learning something new. Nobody said this was a perfect road, but yes, I'd like to give a special thank you to Brian Herdasky. If I say your name wrong, I apologize. For Maryland Sports Blog, the site manager for MarylandSportsBlog.com. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to write for them. and more importantly, giving me the confidence and actually taking the time and working with me. There was a previous publication that I tried out for, and let's just say there are some things that just didn't go right in terms of, let's help you get better. Didn't do that. I'm not going to say the company's name. I'm not going to put them on front sheet like that. But I just look at it like, when one door closes, another door opens. So thank you for Maryland Sports Blog for giving me the opportunity. None of this is possible without just giving thanks to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because without him, none of this is possible. So I have to thank him. I'd like to thank all the support from friends. I have to give a shout out to my guys, Cameron, Marcus, Elliott, much appreciated. And lastly, I have to give him a special shout out to Sean Spencer. Me and Sean Spencer know each other for almost going on like 3 years now. We have our differences in how we see things when it comes to the sports world, but I see the impact he's had on me. It's almost like having a big brother. Sometimes I feel like he can be hard on me, but it's for the greater good. So I truly appreciate you, Sean, and what you've done for me. And this is also for him. So, but then also too, hey, this was fun. I can't wait to do it again next year. Got to also give a shout out before we end the show. All those that cover the Washington Mystics, got to meet some great people. Can't wait to do it again next year. But you will see me next in less than 50 days at the Serengeti as we get ready for Maryland women's basketball team. We'll be covering them again this season. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to end this episode of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.
Thank you for tuning in to Big Nate Sports Talk. If you enjoyed that episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the next big thing, the next up-and-coming sports journalist, Big Nate Sports Talk. It's on all the time, anytime.
I want to thank you, yeah. I want to thank you. Ooh. For all the times you put up with me. Thank you. And you helped me retain my sanity. Thank you. I want to thank you. And I want to thank you. All I want to do is say thank you for everything you do.